another twist in that title race. It is still technically in Arsenal's hands, but they're going to have to be absolutely perfect between now and the end of the season. As well as Benty, Glenn Murray and Darren Lewis are here with us. Darren. Tough times to be an Arsenal fan at the moment. Top of the league, 4 points clear of City. What more do you want?
Honestly, it's, the last 2 weeks have been tough. Not so much the Liverpool one, because they're a top side, and at Anfield, to go there and win. But after the start they had, you'd expect them to go on and take all 3 points. But I think the West Ham one was the one, because West Ham fighting for their lives. You get into such a commanding lead, you're playing really well, and I couldn't see any way West Ham got themselves back into it. But it almost felt like, certainly the second half, when West Ham got themselves back into it and then got the equaliser, like I was watching a little bit of Arsenal from last season, where they conceded a goal, the implosion was there, and maybe last season they would have lost it. But still, when you look at the fact that they've left, they should have 6 points after the last 2 games, and they haven't. And with the form that Manchester City are in, you can't help but worry, because Manchester City have been there so many times, they've done it. In this type of situation, they're quite comfortable, aren't they, Manchester City, because they've chased Liverpool down for years. It's been them and Liverpool. They always find a way of getting it done, and now it's Arsenal's turn. Arsenal have just got to keep their composure, which right now they're not doing.
Yeah, they don't look like the side that we saw earlier in the season, who were running on all that kind of excitement and adrenaline and the joy of being at the top of the table. Now it looks like they're feeling the burden of being at the top of the table.
Well, they're starting to look a little bit like the old Arsenal, I think, and you mentioned the last couple of results there, and I think they've been the catalyst of their own downfall. They're coming together between Xhaka and Trent at Anfield, and then giving the penalty away, just giving teams a leg up that were almost dead and buried in both games. But for me, I've got a little bit of a different view in it, because I think as though they're going to go to the Etihad now and they've got nothing to lose, whereas originally they've been going there to protect something, and it might make you a little bit negative, maybe not taking as many chances. Now the whole season is on that game, so they're just going to go on there and they'll play with a freedom almost, and that youthful exuberance might just show its face again.
It's an interesting one, that, because I think it was Gary Neville was talking about this, and what Sir Alex Ferguson used to say to the Man United players when it came to this stage of the season and there was a crunch match. He said, if I told you at the start of the season you had to win one game to win the league, you'd have snapped our hands off. And so this is the situation that Arsenal find themselves in, except it's not quite, because Arsenal need to win every other game as well as that one.
Absolutely, and it's going to be hard to do
well,
that.
Well, they could draw in that one, sorry. Yeah.
Well, but see, as far as City are concerned, they've only drawn one out of, 30 games at the Etihad, and they've lost one as well. It's near invincible at their own ground. And the trouble with Arsenal is that they're doing what City are not doing. City are not leaving any crumbs. They're going 3 goals ahead, and that's it, the game is dead. Whereas that 2-0 victory in each of the last 2 games, 2-0 lead in each of the last 2 games for Arsenal, it's there to be got at. And there is always a way in if you can grab a goal, grab a lifeline. I think with City, the muscle memories there, I've always felt City would do it. And the reason for that is because of that muscle memory. They know how to navigate the final few fences, if you like, to use a horse racing analogy. But I think as far as Arsenal are concerned, there is a ray of hope. If Saliba does come back, there's more organisation in defence. And also, I still think they've got Southampton at home. I don't want to be disrespectful to Southampton, but it's a perfect opportunity. You guys have been playing.
Friday night at the Emirates.
Exactly. You get back into that winning habit. Suddenly the pressure's back
on. Do you mean Southampton or Arsenal here?
Darren and Glenn there have both mentioned those moments that can change matches, and you look at Arsenal at this stage of the season. It comes Saka's apologising and saying, I've missed the penalty. For Manchester City in the game against Leicester, having made 5 substitutions and looked like they were going to cruise to the victory in that game, if Iheanacho hadn't hit the post, but that had gone in, suddenly it's 3-2 with 5 minutes to go, and it's a much nervier end to the game for Manchester City. But Arsenal and those key moments, and like you said, the moment between Xhaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold at Anfield last week, it feels as though those things aren't going Arsenal's way at the moment.
Yeah, it's fine margins, because as you said there, with the Iheanacho chance hits the post, it's a different game. Saka, who's been, fantastic this season. usually we tuck that penalty away. He misses the target completely, which shows maybe a few nerves are creeping into his game as well.
But
Because
Darren, why do you think Arsenal stopped playing? I was at the game, I was covering the game, and we were starting to think we'd have to watch the rest of it for our fingers after they went 2-0 up. You know, it was just breathtaking the first 10 minutes. And then, inexplicably, Arsenal stopped playing. They started wasting time. The referee had to do that at one stage, very demonstrably, to one of the players, because he was saying, you're taking your time overthrown. Gabriel Jesus on the far side goes down after the ball hits him on the cheek. It's nothing injury, you know, it's not even an injury, but he's wasting time. And you think to yourself, why are you taking the momentum out of your own game when you can actually do what City normally do, get that third goal, so that even if Leicester do grab a goal, have a chance, it's still out of their reach. It's still what amounted to some
I think it's
out.
because, I think you just said it there, because City know how to do that. Arsenal have not been in this situation for a long time. I mean, they last won the league, 2003. This young crop of players last season were fighting to get into the top four. But in terms of actually winning the league, they've never been there before. So going 2-0 up, listen, I thought the game was over as well. I couldn't see a way of West Ham getting themselves back into the game. So Arsenal trying all the dark arts, they're going down, they're wasting a bit of time because they feel that's how they have to do to win the game. Manchester City have been there, as we just spoke about, so many times that they'll go and get the second, the third. They're so relaxed in this type of situation that they'll go and beat teams 4 or 5 and not even think. Arsenal are thinking, right, we're 2-0 up, and listen, I've been a player, Glenn's been a player. When you've had the week before, the 2-0 lead, and they've come back and caught you up, the moment you go 2 up again, you start thinking, oh, it could happen again. You don't want it to happen, but subconsciously it does creep back
Surely
in.
not after 10 minutes, though, and you're absolutely cruising.
It's one of them, innit, where you think, right, the game's won. But all of a sudden, things start to go against you. You can't quite get the game going. You can't keep passing the ball like you once were. Then all of a sudden, 2-1, then you know what it's like. All of a sudden, you come up completely away from what you did to get yourself back in the game in the first place.
Yeah,
Mikel Arteta's kind of come in making that similar point where he said, this isn't just about, isn't necessarily about the stress of the title race. This is about us not being ruthless enough. This is about Arsenal not being able to put the game beyond the opposition when they've got that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it basically boils down that City are killer and Arsenal aren't at the moment. City put teams to bed when they have the opportunity to, and that's probably, yes, being in this position before, but it's also down to one man as well in Haaland, because any sniff of a goal he gets, he finishes it, and we're looking at, and with Manchester City's cast off in Jesus, who's he's a very good centre-forward and he is a goal scorer, but he's not in the same breath as Haaland, and he's dropping deep, and like I say, they're just not killer. They're not as clinical, and whether that's because of their makeup or whether that's because of the experience and not being in this position before, I mean, I think we'll see.
Do you know what as well they do, Kels, is that Arsenal keep the ball for the sake of just keeping it. Like, rather than actually going and getting that third goal, playing in their attacking half, they'll keep it at the back, they'll go into Partey, they'll go to the full-back, and that just draws West Ham onto you. And the moment, I mean, Declan Rice was the one who kind of started it all off. The moment he went bang and won that ball, Arsenal just didn't know how to then go again to start playing the attacking half, and I think these are things that they're kind of learning on the job.
And you know what Arsenal's also done, which is quite interesting? I was just thinking about that as you were talking. They've created a culture of doubt around them. Even for us in the media, we've been writing about them winning it potentially as a fait accompli. You know, but there's been this expectation that they will go into any given game, City included, and win. Now there isn't that certainty. So if you're a player, and we were talking before the show about sometimes players pick up the pace.
If they're not taking these shows in and things, I think subconsciously, and also I think a huge part of it is the fan base, because they've seen it happen so many times before. I'm sure Arteta's trying to protect that group of players so much by shutting out the noise, which he has done really well, especially after the start he had at the start of last year, Brentford away and all that. He shut out the noise. They got down to business. They've been working on their project, but now I just feel as though the fans are getting edgy, and like you say, subconsciously it must be seeping into the players.
And do you find it easy then, when you get home, to not turn on the TV to pick up the paper? How easy is it to shut? I know we use that phrase.
You don't.
It's a lot harder now than it was certainly when I was, because there was no social media.
Yeah.
Now these guys are all on social media. You pick up your phone, it's there in black and white. You put on Sky Sports News, it's there. So unfortunately, you can shut it out as much as you want, but you're always going to see it, you're always going to hear it.
But you never shut it out, do you? Because personally, on a level, you're always working out results, you're worried about form, you're worried about goal scoring, you're looking at the other team, so you're always taking it in, and you're always worried about. Footballers don't just go train and go home and forget about it. No. It's not done. They're in the Premier League title race. They're desperate to lift that, and that doesn't just leave when you leave the training ground. That's whether your kid's got a third birthday party, you're still thinking, I wonder if I'm going to get it. Do you know what I mean? So you live it. You live it. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Yeah. You live it every second and every minute of every day. It's not something you can put to bed. It's not like you finish work, put the papers to one side and you're done. It's you live and breathe it, and you have done ever since you were a kid, and that's why they're at the level they're at.
Yeah.
But that when you were talking about Arteta and the atmosphere he's trying to create, he's talked about this already this season, that he wants them almost to enjoy every moment that they spend as part of this title race. Pep Guardiola, we've talked about before, tries to almost take emotion out of the situation. This is just a process that they go through, and if they keep doing it, then they will get the results. For Arsenal, even before the game against West Ham, Arteta looked very relaxed, looked like a man who was sleeping well. He looked like a man who didn't have the weight of a title race on his shoulders. I don't know if maybe that's a hard thing to get into those players' heads when they are in a title race, to try and take that pressure away. Maybe it's about embracing the pressure and learning to enjoy that in a way.
Well, I think they are learning, as I've said, on the job and trying to embrace that pressure. Arteta's on the sideline, and he's obviously the focal figure. He's the one they all look at, and if he's relaxed or if he's there panicking, then that's going to seep into the players. But he's trying to be as calm as possible. But then, of course, on the flip side of that, you see Arteta on the sidelines, and he's up and he's down, he's berating. And I think when things are going really well, I think that's a real big help. I think the players will look at that, the fans will look at that and go, yeah, we'll feed off the manager. But in these times here where it's a little bit, it could go either way, and he's still doing that way, then the players will start to think, well, he seems a bit tense, and again, that seeps into the player's psyche.
What's interesting about that is that some people say that they want Arsenal to win the title because of what you've just expressed, the beauty, the joy, the fun element. And some people don't want City to win because they see them as soulless. But actually, sport is about being clinical. If you look at other sports where the sportsmen were so focused, there was nothing else in their lives except winning, except training, except doing all of the things to get the marginal gains. And some people don't like that. They don't see any joy or fun in that. And so they want the club, the player, the team, the entity, whatever else, to be able to say, let's win it in a way that says balloons and fun, and do you know what I mean? And I think as far as Arsenal are concerned, that actually might be the difference between the two, because as you said, City are killers. When you play against them, they will basically, I keep saying not leave any crumbs, but you know what I'm trying to say. They put it so far beyond you. It's almost bloodless in a way. It's ruthlessly efficient. It's knowing how to get the job done and to move on to the next thing. And that's been the reason why I've always felt their knowledge of the course and the distance, psychologically how to get into the right headspace so that they can do what's necessary at this stage. Even if you look at Arteta and you look at Guardiola in press conferences, Arteta's been wonderful to listen to. Real fun, joking, and whatever else. You know, the other day he was asked about his dreams. You know, do you have a dream? He said, lots of wild dreams. You know, loads of love. Yeah, just like this. He's a tough audience. But as far as Guardiola's concerned, he's not joking in these press conferences. He's all about the job. He's all about the business. He was getting asked about Bayern Munich, for example, and their three players are fighting. He said, if they're fighting, it means they want it. It means they care. It means we have to be switched on. Bayern Munich scored 19 times 3 goals or more so far this season. We can't be complacent going into this match. He knows all about the traps and the tripwires that lie ahead at this stage of the season when you start to get complacent. That's why I think they'll go on and win this Premier League.
Yeah, and it's there for Manchester City. If they want it, if they have a perfect end to the season and they beat Arsenal at the Etihad, it will be in their hands, in large part to the goal-scoring prowess of Erling Haaland. You talk about maybe City looking for a bit of fun. It would be fun to score 32 goals and counting in a Premier League season.
Honestly, I scored 24 one year and I thought I'd done well. Now, maybe I didn't. Because he's making an absolute mockery of some of the numbers, Haaland.
He's forcing everyone to reassess, isn't he?
I mean, he's got there, and I think a lot of people maybe judged him a bit soon after. I think it was the Charity Shield, I think it was, where he missed a couple of chances, and people start to say the Premier League is a different animal.
Is he going to be all right?
Yeah. And so, but what he's done, I mean, it helps when you play in a team like that. And I still, and this is going to sound bonkers, Kel, I still don't feel they use him enough. Like, it's like De Bruyne will get the ball and he'll look for him. Jack's looking for him a little bit more, Jack Grealish. But I mean, you look at his numbers now. Every time he gets a chance, he's another one of them players that he doesn't know when the next opportunity is coming. So I have to take it. And one thing about him, and Glenn will know this, he hits the target all the time.
And you've got to think he only plays 60 minutes a week.
Yeah.
He always takes you over. Can you imagine if he played 90 minutes?
There was a great headline in one of the papers yesterday, half day.
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
Yeah.
You know, goes home for lunch, thank you very much, I'm done.
Darren will know, I mean, that's when the game opens up and your chances actually do arise when the game gets stretched, last 10, 20 minutes. But, I mean, he's phenomenal and what he's done. I honestly don't think we'll see it again. I really don't. His physicality, his power, his mentality, his hunger to score goals. I mean, he's a very, very special talent. And this sounds mental, but I think he can still get better in his all-round play.
I was thinking that just now when we were looking at the numbers. Actually, we won't see it again. We might do from him. Because, I mean, for both of the guys, when in your first spell or season at a club, you think I get it right after 25 years, wouldn't you? When you first go to a club, you're taking the time to adapt to a new team, to a style of play, to a new environment. So whatever you do in that first season, you're only going to be better in the next season, surely.
And you were talking about it last week, Darren, about the hunger, and you mentioned it, Glenn. The way Haaland stays hungry. And Pep Guardiola has talked about this, bringing him off when he has scored 2 goals, just before it opens up nicely to allow him the opportunity to get a hat-trick. Bringing him off, having scored 5 goals against Leipzig, just when it's about to open up and allow him to score his double hat-trick. But it's clearly working for Haaland psychologically. Wouldn't necessarily work for everyone, but just that sense of just keeping everything out of reach. You've not achieved it yet. You've not quite got there yet. I think that's a really interesting mind trick.
Yeah, and he has done that very well, and I suppose it does because he'll come off and there'll be a tiny bit of him. There'll be a lot of him delighted, but there'll be a tiny bit of him thinking, oh, I could have got 1 more, I could have got 2 more. But I just love how his whole game is based around goals. And listen, a lot of strikers make runs constantly, yeah. But this fella makes runs with purpose, doesn't he? He's so powerful and direct. I mean, we've got Kevin De Bruyne. And I feel as though City, sort of January, February time, they slipped into the old City and they become more possession-based. But they're going back again now and their first thought is becoming Haaland. Can we hit Haaland? From a little bit, didn't they? Just in the middle of the season there. Reverted back to type almost. But for me, he's going to be the difference.
Do you know what he does as well on this Manchester City side? Because we've seen it a lot, and I know they've been really successful. But they have had games where they're kind of huffing and puffing, but they've not got anyone in there. The balls are flashing across the 6-yard box, and no one's in there. You can put all that to bed now because every single time that ball comes into the box, into a certain area, he's always there, always there. And it must be incredibly hard as a defender because you think, right, I'll get into this position. He's already there. He's flying across the front of people. He's just getting little nicks. The goalkeeper parries one. There's 10 people in the box. Who's it fall to?
Apart from that,
do you know? For me, he is beyond his years. So his understanding of the game and his knack of where to be, it just can't be taught. And that's something that you usually get in your latter years, isn't it? That comes with experience through playing at this level over and over again. But he's got it at such a young age. I mean, it's like I said,
he's also a hybrid as well because he's massive, he's big, so he's not just the target man, so he's got the physical attributes, but then he's got the explosiveness, the pace, which you'd associate with maybe a wide player, so he can run in behind as well. So I think he's a bit of both, a bit old school and new school.
And now he's got the fear.
Yeah.
So you've got seasoned professional centre-backs that are making erratic mistakes because they're worried about him. He hasn't even done anything yet, but they're dropping 10 yards and allowing him to turn and things. So there's a huge fear factor around him.
Do you know, there's nothing better as well when you walk onto a football pitch and you're in great form and you just know, I've got these. Like, you can just tell, you know
that's him every time he touches the grass.
I've got these. I know I'm going to get an opportunity. I know I'm going to score, and that's him at the minute. And when you play with the players that he's playing with, I mean, it's impossible.
For me as a journalist, there is an excitement. You've been around for a while seeing strikers, and every so often a really good one comes along, a Suarez, a Drogba, an Henry, a Rooney. There are. I even remember before Rooney even got a Murray and Bento.
It's a half. You'd become that nicely, but you just ruined it with that last triple.
It's not happening.
but you see, I as
See
a
if Darren comes
journalist,
back for the
If I
second
get back
part.
from this, I actually feel an excitement about Haaland, the fact that he's a phenomenon, and you wonder what he can do. What he can do in a single game, what he can do in a single season, how many records he can rip up. You start going through all the books. I think it was Ted Drake who scored 7 goals 100 years ago for Everton. I think for Arsenal in one game. Could he do that? Well, I think he could. You know, all of the ridiculous things that we think a footballer can't do, he could do them. And obviously his show goes all around the world, but I would imagine in all of the different leagues, there'll be people who, in countries who are thinking, do we have anything like that here? You know, could he be as good here? And when we're all on social media and we see the clips of players doing well, and we always think, oh my goodness, it's a one-team league, isn't it? It's a two-team league, isn't it? This is the toughest league in the world, and we have the finest striker planet football's probably ever seen. And it kind of makes you feel like, I don't know, it's season 2 of a boxer, and you go, how are they going to stop this guy? You know? That's how formidable he is. All of those superlatives and hyperbole and everything connected with it, we've got it right here. It's so exciting, even as someone who's covered football for as long as I have.
Quick look at the remaining fixtures. And I think we did this with about 10 games to go. We started doing this about 10 games to go. At which point you go, do you know what? Both sides could go unbeaten or practically win every game between now and the end of the season. It certainly feels that way still for Manchester City, but just a couple of games, a couple of falters for Arsenal, and suddenly you're looking through it and going, well, we don't know what if Chelsea are going to click at any stage. Newcastle, I know they had a wobble at the weekend, but they're capable, particularly at St James's Park, of getting a result there. Brighton in fantastic form. We'll talk about that race for the top 4 next as well. Nottingham Forest struggling to get results, but it's at the City ground and they need the win potentially at that stage to stay in the Premier League. And Wolves putting something together under Julian Lopetegui as well. So it starts to look like you start to look at all the negatives and all the reasons why Arsenal can't win between now and the end of the season, rather than looking at all the reasons they probably will win those games.
Well, it'll give them a massive opportunity if they beat Southampton and then they go into that massive one. If they were to somehow win that, and I know Dad said about they're pretty much faultless at the Etihad, if they were to win that, then all of a sudden the perception changes again. Because then you look at the next crop of games and you go, well, Arsenal can win them games. So I think a lot of it does come down to that battle at the Etihad.
If they beat Southampton and they take anything from the game at the Etihad, it is game on between now and the... That's really, as a neutral, what we want to see, isn't it? Not as an Arsenal fan. But yeah.
But I think also what you've got to take into consideration, Manchester City winning 3-0 in their Champions League game. It looks like they're going to have 2 more fixtures to add to that fixture list as well, which it's starting to look really busy.
Yeah, and it's going to be against Real Madrid if they manage, if Chelsea don't manage to get back into it. Yeah. but again, it's another challenge that they're going to have to work out. It's a shame that they just don't have the level of players they're going to be.
Their squad's not big enough or deep enough.
Pep Guardiola would say they don't use that many players, certainly compared to some squads, but everyone that they have is at like really high caliber, and they're all versatile.
I remember 2012 when Chelsea were in the FA Cup semi-final and they were they were trying to win the Champions League as well. I remember asking, I think it was Frank Lampard was doing a press conference ahead of the semi-final, and we believed that the squad would be changed, the team would be changed for the semi-final, with obviously the Champions League coming up. And he said, no, we want to play. We're winning all the time. You don't feel the aches and the pains and whatever else when you're playing and you're winning. And that's what we want to be able to do. And I think as far as City are concerned, it isn't even that they're feeling the aches and the pains. Haaland had a mid-season rest. You know, he's not going to be feeling any aches and pains. He was probably... There was that meme on social media where, while all the players were out in Qatar, he was basically pumping iron, on the treadmill, you know. He's fine. And I think... the management of the players at City, taking them off. I mean, they were 3-0 up and Pep took them all off against Leicester, and that allowed them to kind of... It was a bit of an unrepresentative sheen to the game by the end, because the players, just the first teamers, were all sitting on the bench. I think they're going to be okay for this run-in. I really do. They're going to cope with the workload. They'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be great as we run into the end of the season.
Right, this is going to be the standard Sunday chat between now and the end of May. How do you view the title race now?
Oh, well, there's an important game coming up soon. Yeah, it's interesting because at 2-0, I thought Arsenal were just showing their credentials yet again. I think they've been fantastic overall this season. I thought they were just going to run away with this game. But it's always a reminder that in this final third of the season, everyone's got something to play for. So as a consequence, no game is going to be easy. And it's not about the 35 minutes like Arteta said. It's about seeing it through all the way. So a lot of City people would be very, very happy. But the fact is Arsenal still technically have it in their hands.
How do you view it?
Yeah, I still think Manchester City for the title. I really do. The way they're playing at the minute, I can't see them losing a game from now till the end of the season. And obviously when you talk about goal difference, when you've got Haaland, is it even a question?
Does it depend where some of those fixtures that we saw fall in relation to, say, Champions League? If Manchester City and Real Madrid both get through, for example, Jill, City go to Madrid Tuesday or Wednesday before they go to Goodison.
Yeah, it's a busy schedule, but you look at the Manchester City squad. If Grealish isn't ready, you can put Foden in, you've got Silva, you've got so many different options. So for me, I just think City are on a roll and I can't see them dropping any points.
Yeah, the thing that's quite dangerous to me when I look at that is that game against Brighton needs to be rearranged, because Brighton right now are one of the best sides in the Premier League, and to go down there, especially given the fact they've got as many games going on as they have, I think that potentially outside of the Arsenal one could be the toughest one before now in the end.